Terri Murphy with Realty Times Women in Business and Women in Real Estate. And I have a great guest today. So amazing. He was way ahead of his time and he's still a baby. This is Screen to Screen Selling with Doug Devitre. Doug, welcome.
Yeah, Terry, thanks for having me on your show today.
Well, you know, Doug, you were so ahead of your time with screen to screen selling. This was actually published back in 2014, if I recall.
Yeah.
And it's McGraw-Hill did it. And so it was like a serious book. I mean, it's a serious book. I mean, you know, it's like serious. And you did such a great job of telling us about screen to screen selling. And I remember when you called me and you said, Terry, you got to do screen to screen selling. I'm like, what? So how come you knew that?
You know, there was a couple different things for me, at least, that were triggers. In fact, in 2013, I did research for the Florida Realtors. They hired me for and ended up being a 2-year program to help realtors connect with international buyers. And part of the research said that 50% of realtors were very weak when it came to these types of meetings, right? We were able to share your screen and be able to get into that. The second time, you know, I was in a serious relationship, right? And I wanted to be a good husband and a good dad. And so I kind of wanted to learn how to get off the road. And so this was a good way for me to kind of stretch myself, put myself outside the comfort zone. And then I just saw that the technology was getting better, right? It was easier to be able to have some of these meetings, the quality of the audio, the quality of the video, the increase of the bandwidth, right? It just became easier. So I was thinking, you know what? It's time that somebody comes out with something to be able to help people. And now today, like, we don't have a choice, right? We can't leave our houses.
Well, and who knew? You know, years ago when we first started in the internet business way back in the RIN days, we didn't have sound, we didn't have bandwidth, didn't have flash. And so now we have this magic of connecting face to face without being face to face. And whoever would have thought that we would be in a predicament like we are today globally, not just locally, but globally. So thank you for being the maverick at this. And if there were 4 things that you could share besides everybody has to buy your book, what, I mean, I just would say, what would be the first step?
First step, I think first it's a mindset deal, right? Like we have to learn the technology is our friend, that you're going to make mistakes going into it, right? The whole idea is to minimize your mistakes before you start working with your customers, right? And until you start playing with it or start to use it, you know, I would say practice on your family first, because your family's a little bit more forgiving. You'll develop a stronger comfort level, right? And it's what repetition is what gives you confidence. And so, you know, I mean, if you haven't started already, then start today.
Well, you know, I think that's one thing. And people don't like the way they look on video. I mean, they don't like it. But I always say, here's a newsflash. That's what you look like. And that's what you sound like. And that's so uniquely you that you should just embrace that and go for it. Now, if you're an idiot on camera, you probably need to practice, right?
Well, it's so true to say that, Terry, because I think a lot of folks will rush to get technology, but it's really not a technology issue. It's a communication issue, right? So like if you get involved with like Toastmasters, that's like a place to start, because then you can start to think on your feet and be a little more extemporaneous in your conversations. Because I think even a huge mistake when people get into this environment, especially if they're in a sales role, as you're trying to sell somebody something, and somebody at some point said that, hey, you have to create a PowerPoint presentation to give them a visual to be able to, so they can see all the things that you can offer them. And in fact, we've actually distanced ourselves from customers, right? So there's a right way to approach this and there's a wrong way to approach this. So I just hope that for everybody listening, that you not just get the book, but start to, here's one, open it up, right? Open it up.
Well, you have a lot of, and congratulations on being a certified speaking professional with the National Association of National Speakers Association, and all the work you've done for the National Association of Realtors and Women's Council, and God, everybody. But and so that really does make you the celebrity authority on how to engage with people using technology as your tool. And so practice is clearly one of the things you can do. And like you said, you can practice with family and friends. it's not hard. It's very economical. Right now we're using a Zoom platform, but there are others. Why don't you talk about that for just a
Yeah,
second?
and I think one of the biggest mistakes that we can make is try to force this type of environment on a customer. Though they might not be ready for it right yet, right? You could be working with the exclusive seniors community, and they just too afraid of using this. So why not pick up the phone and then guide them through whatever. And then my dad is a perfect example. He's 80 now, and first time he walked into an Apple store, he had a panic attack. Right? Like it's just like.
Well, you could have a panic attack standing in line to go into the Apple store, but actually, once you get in there and somebody, grabs you, you're good.
Yeah. So, I mean, I had to encourage him and say, you have family that's all over the world, right? And you want to be able to see you only get to see your grandchildren maybe once or twice a year. Why not? Do you want to see them more often? And so it kind of started to change his paradigm. So then he started to like embrace it and then get started. So one thing also to think about when it comes to technology, we have to meet the customer where they are with the technology they're already used to, right? So if a customer has FaceTime, then use FaceTime. If a customer is using Skype, then you use Skype. If a customer has an Android and you have an Apple phone, what are you going to do? So you have to have a customer-friendly alternative, and just my go-to has always been Zoom. But again, there are other ones that are out there that you just have to maybe try and experiment with, so that way you develop a comfort level with kind of your go-to. But really, like, you got to meet the customer where they are. So that, think about this: if I have Skype and you don't, and then I tell you that you need to go to www.skype.com and create a username and password, and then add me as a contact in order for us to have a conversation, what are you going to say to me?
You know,
It's too much work just to talk.
Telling the viewers that this is going to be a different experience. Well, not only that, but that's always been the case. You meet the customer where they are. And you can walk them up. I mean, this is obviously much more engaging than an email. They get to see there's an experiential thing that happens here that doesn't happen with a flat medium or just even on a phone. So that makes really good sense.
Yeah. I cringe when I see people sending out video emails and think that that's selling. Gosh, that's one small. This is where the magic happens, right? This is where I get to listen to your needs, right? This is where I get to actually demonstrate something that's of real-time value to you in the moment. And so, we've said for years, nothing will replace face-to-face. Well, gosh, nothing will replace screen-to-screen, because it's kind of the same deal. It's just using we're talking into the computer rather than, looking, being able to reach out and touch someone.
Well, you said that was pretty important to meet the consumer where they are. And again, it's not, when you send screen to screen selling, it's really a screen to screen conversation. Selling happens when people are comfortable and if they actually need the resource that you're providing. And so many times people think that if it's a sales job, they don't want to do that. It's really more about, like you said, listening to the client or the customer, giving them resources, whether you're the resource or not. I mean, especially in real estate, if we are resource centers. So,
yeah.
Hang on, I gotta read this person. All right. So number 3 would be, it really is a great tool for differentiation, right?
Well, no doubt. I mean, you think about picking up the phone versus being able to talk like this, you kind of stand out. Now, one of the things I could have done also, since everybody's using Zoom now, we're trying to think about how do I differentiate myself. Well, then I can put up a virtual background, right? Another way to differentiate yourself is being able to pull up websites and be able to demonstrate your expertise in a way that's valuable to them, right? So one thing that kind of comes up quite a bit is, that a seller finds, somebody wants to sell their house, finds their listing on Zillow, and they say, well, gosh, what you just told me, Zillow says my house is worth more, right? And then you can use the language with them, that to be able to compare that with what's on your comparative market analysis. But the reality is you need to be able to show somebody, right? So then that gets in an opportunity where you would go inside of your online meeting platform, click share screen, and then be able to do it quickly, right? Not fumble with it, not be able to having issues being able to log in, right? Or not being able to type it. So when we think about the internet minute compared to face, like if I bore you or there's delays in our conversation, you can quickly hit leave meeting or end meeting and you're out the door. A whole lot easier than I can just like grab you by the arm and say you're not leaving. So we have to develop the skills inside of the technology, and so that we can execute faster and not keep people waiting, because that is part of the experience, right?
Yeah, and it's also part of the frustration. I mean, depending on the behavioral style of the person you've got, you don't look competent and you don't look confident. So it's not really that hard, especially if you practice. So that's a really good point. I also think that there needs to be something said about distractions when you're doing something like this. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, there's distractions that you can control and there's things that you can't, right?
Yeah, we mentioned that.
The distractions you can control are your lighting. The distractions that you can control are your sound. The distractions you can control is the speed of your internet in most cases, right? So one of the things that's critically important, because now we're using a higher internet connection for our laptop because we're using video, we have to do a speed test for internet. So if you go to speedtest.net and be able to test your internet speed, I recommend a minimum of 30 megabytes per second. And if you don't have that, then it's time to call up your internet service provider and say, hey, I need to upgrade this, or it may not just be the internet connection speed that you've already bought into, but you need to increase the speed of your signal by getting what's called a mesh network, right?
And
And
I
so,
went up and got one just because you told me about it, and it's awesome.
cool. You probably see the difference between you did a speed test before and we do after. So if you think about like homes, like you're working from home right now in most cases, right? So if you're working from home right now and let's say you have a 2-story house, or you have a house that's kind of longer, or is that like the rooms are kind of, there's a greater distance from where your home, where kind of your internet connection, the landline is, the coaxial cable from the internet company, like there's a longer distance from that. And then also think about this with your smart home devices that you have. Think about this: you have smart light bulbs, you have smart locks, you have your garage door opener that's tied to the internet connection. You have Amazon Alexa devices now. I have probably about like 10 of these things all throughout my house.
Well, you did a whole program with Alexa, if I recall.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have one of my keynotes called "Living in a Voice First World." I have a smart home guide. It's called the Ultimate Smart Home Guide for Real Estate Agents, which is not just the slides that I offer for free, but also a checklist that you can kind of go through and see where you are. I also have a technology buying guide that analyzes all the smart home products and their prices and reviews, and even what they get, even what the monthly sales are and revenue is, so you can start to compare at a deeper level from what you just see on the main Amazon page. I mean, there's a lot of content out there. You can start to make good decisions. I'm just thrilled to be able to be a resource in this time of need.
Well, tell me, tell our listeners where they can access that information that you just offered.
Yeah, good. So if you go to voicemarketingforbusiness.com, that's a good place to get started, because that has everything that it would do with Amazon Alexa. Even if you go to the Facebook group, or you look up on Facebook, Voice Marketing for Business, you can join that Facebook group. And I post a lot of smart home tips with that, in addition to how real estate companies can program Amazon Alexa for their business, right? So it's like creating a website or creating a mobile app. Now you can extend your brand by having one of these voice apps, and the platform, one of the most popular platforms that most people are using today is Amazon Alexa.
Wow. Well, yeah, Alexa is a whole different thing. So if you were listening here and watching and you don't know what to buy, this is the guy to help you do that, because it seems like the evolution comes out while you're inhaling, right? And so it's just so fast. It's really good to know what's not an interim product. And you're right, with everybody sequestered and quarantined, we're working from home. Maybe the home isn't capable of supporting something like this. But one of the things you talk about in your book is there a new way to sell your products and services. And I think, quite frankly, that video is hard to ignore. I know I have a number of people that say, well, I've got things over my cameras because the Russians can see me, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not worried about the Russians. I'm kind of worried about my neighbor. but at the end of the day, once you get comfortable with it and you understand the protocols and the safeties, I think it's a way for you to, I will say, get past a gatekeeper. Not that they aren't good gatekeepers, but you know what I'm saying. It's so personal, and it's so differentiated, as you just mentioned, that people want to engage. But there must be some tips about how long, how short, what you can do with them. Do you record them? Don't you record them? What do you think?
Yeah. Gosh, so this is a lot. There's probably about 5 different questions in there.
Of course
Probably.
there is. I want to keep
Yeah.
you.
No. This is good. So in order to have one of these screen-to-screen meetings, first of all, somebody's got to trust you, right? Because what are you doing? You're sending them a link to click on that might have to download something to their computer, and they may be fearful of that. Or if they're now everybody's using Zoom, right? Like 5 years ago, people were like, I don't want to do that. I don't know what's Zoom. now everybody's using it, so it's a whole lot easier to be able to have that conversation. Whereas 5 years, it was a little bit trickier. But you have to have trust in order to be able to do that, because sometimes like, you can get a situation where like, if I don't trust you, I'm not going to have my camera, because you might take a screenshot of me or something like that. Also, you talk about recording. The host can record the conversation, and then depending on what your laws on your state, if it's a one-way recording state or two-way recording state, these recordings could be used against you in court, right? So that's where you really have to have a conversation with your broker owner, your attorney, to decide when can I record these conversations, and then when I shouldn't, right? Or when it's just not like, it's just not cool to do that, right?
Well, and that's part of your core values for integrity. So while we have a few minutes, in your opinion, and because you're very familiar with the real estate world, what would be one of the best ways to utilize Zoom in, say, for a buyer or seller when you're an agent?
Yeah. You just want one way, or you want three?
I want three.
Okay. See, I'm in the belief of strategically multiplying my time, because
Okay.
we only have so many minutes in the day. So what I want to think about is, who else can I involve in my conversation that could add in value to a specific transaction, that we can not just talk about it, these real-time conversation, but we can record it and then be able to use it for marketing purposes, right? Now, excluding the confidential side of things, and we have to be clear, hey, we're going to record this and be able to post this later. Are you cool with that? And as long as you get permission, something you might be able to do. Well, if I have the lender on one of these, right? I have the home inspector on these. I have the title company on those. Remember, do you ever do the first time home buyer seminars?
Of course.
Yeah, why not invite the whole posse to be able to join one of these things? Have a couple of buyers, prospective buyers, be able to ask questions, and like in your buyer's agent contract or buyer's agency agreement, there's a line item that says that I am not going to be your attorney, your surveyor, your title company.
Exactly.
I'm going to be the source of the source, right? So you, as the host of one of these screen-to-screen meetings, asks the questions with the appropriate professional inside of the process of where that buyer might be, and now you have a video that you can put up on your
Right.
YouTube channel. You have an audio that you could use and repurpose, maybe for a podcast. I don't know. Then you could take that video, kind of like we're probably going to do with this, is turn that into a transcript, and that transcript gets put into a blog post and formatted with the right links associated with it. And think about this too. If I've just created a video that includes my lender, my title company, my inspector, do you think I'm going to be the only one who's sharing this thing?
I would hope not.
No.
Leverage, baby.
No.
Leverage.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to share with everybody else. Why? Is because not only have you linked to their stuff, but that's kind of, you've given them opportunity through your platform and through your reach that you own. You're not paying somebody else for this. You own it, right? You own the content because you've created it yourself. And I think where a lot of probably brokers fail is they have to be able to tie into someone else's channel in order to be able to get exposure. Create your own with your own content that you can use to be able to generate leads for, or be able to recruit new agents.
So you can do a first time buyer seminar. You could actually do a seminar on some of the new protocols that are coming down for small businesses and SBAs, and the payroll stuff and all that. You could literally be that go-to resource, which has nothing to do with asking for leads or buyers or sellers. You could do a buyer presentation on Zoom because you can't be with the buyer.
Yeah. All
And
of that.
people are doing virtual open houses because, and they could, it depending on where you are in the state, because there's some very sticky come lately kind of restrictions. But I mean, there's so many ways for you to present an offer using Zoom. I mean,
Yeah.
boy, this is just a great tool.
Well,
So,
I'll tell you one of the things I'm working with it's an MLS in Canada, right?
ooh,
Um, Smaller MLS in Canada, and we're creating the business process of conducting video tours that it's kind of becomes a policy for people to be able to follow, and it's also integrated with the MLS. So no one's doing anything like this in this type of format, and it'll soon probably become the industry standard as people to follow through. And so we're using these tools creatively, but again, like for us to be on the same page, there has to be a policy put in place, right? Like we have the process that we've kind of created, but then how do we make a policy? So I think as organizations, leading organizations that really want to take this on, need to have it's a little bit more than just training on the tool, right? Like how do you mute and unmute yourself? It's a little deeper than that.
well, and here's the thing. Don't you agree that this incredible impact it is driving people to have to stop, and I mean globally stop, and refigure out how to connect? And what's really interesting to me is that now that they have the time, I mean, consider the normal whirlwind of life, and now you actually have the time for free to practice, basically.
Yeah.
So this is where the creative get creative, and the rest everybody else watches the Hallmark Channel. So I would say, see if you can get a copy. Where can they get a copy of Screen to Screen?
Yeah, so right now, if you go on Amazon, you can get screen to screen selling. It's also available on the Kindle version, and I like the Kindle version too because there's links inside the book you can actually click on and be able to see. If you go to my website, DougDevitre.com, you'll be able to see that, and also on YouTube, I have a ton of videos that are out there. Probably in the next couple of weeks, I'll have my video course on Amazon Alexa that you can take through the Fire TV. So you'll be able to kind of like talk to Alexa, and then it'll play the videos on how to do some of these things. So I just kind of encourage you to the resources here, right? Or there's resources available. Take the time. You can ask me questions, connect with me on LinkedIn. The hardest part of this whole thing is just figuring out how to spell my last name.
I was just going to say, would you mind spelling Devitre? Go ahead.
It's Devitre, D as in David, E as in Edward, V as in Victor, I-T-R-E.
There it is, Doug Devitre, right there. Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being so generous with some of the great stuff you've created for everyone. And if they have any questions, what's your best contact?
Connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay,
Connect with me on LinkedIn, and that's probably the easiest thing. I've got a Facebook page where, gosh, it seems like almost daily I'm creating these Facebook Lives. So even if you just want to jump on one of those and see what it's about, or leave a little thing in the comments, it's hard not to find me, which is kind of scary, right? I'm so accessible. It's hard not to not find me if you're not looking for me.
And it's always a fun experience. I can tell you that because I've known Doug a long time. Well, Doug, thank you so much for joining us here at Realty Times. I hope the rest of you will go to Realty Times, because I know I'm going to have more from Doug and some other great thought leaders that are out there. Thanks for joining us, Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Terri. I appreciate you so much.
Bye-bye.